Old woman in the bathroom. I used to hang out with my bad friends in high school. I was not good at studying, so I skipped school and hung out with my friends in the city, causing problems. I never thought about the trouble I would cause the people around me, so people around me would look at me with a wide eye when I would get into a silly frolic with my friends, and once I was even taken away by the police for shoplifting. At that time, I saw my mother crying and bowing to the police, and I felt my heart palpitate with the thought that I had done something unfilial. One day, my usual friends and I decided to go to a liver test, and I left the house, saying I have an appointment, without much admonition from my father. We headed for a place that looked like an abandoned building with a group of 5 people, including 3 women and 2 men who were not very bright. I didn't care to look into the abandoned building, which I heard used to be a hospital or a ward facility, but it seemed to have been a place used by the residents in the past. There are rumors that people like us now come here to take a stroll for fun, or that it is used as a meeting place for motorcycle gangs. The dusty, earthy smell that brushed our noses seemed to stir a strange chill in the air. The 2 men held up the lights on their phones and began to stroll freely inside, while the 3 of us women huddled together, our fearful natures keeping us from moving forward through the dimly lit corridors. The smell of nature cooled my body through my nostrils even though I was inside the building due to the lack of window glass, but every now and then, something else stinky, different from dirt and dust, would stimulate my sense of smell. It was a strong smell, like something rotten or fecal matter, but I couldn't find any concrete examples of what it was. When I asked my 2 companions about it, they tilted their heads and said, well, maybe we smelled something for a moment, but they seemed to have detected the odor as well as I did. Hey, is this the bathroom? We followed her lead and peeked inside. Across a space that looked like a changing room, we saw a tattered curtain and a small bathtub. The bathtub could fit 2 men if it was filled to the brim, but there were a few smashed spots that looked as if someone had destroyed it. I knew it was a hospital? To be honest, I'm not interested in what it used to be used for, but considering the size of the building, I thought it might be a big clinic there. As the 3 of us looked around the bathroom, which was less than 10 tatami mats, we heard the sound of drops dripping. Quickly, the 3 of us turned the light in the direction of the sound, and for some reason, drops were dripping from the rusty faucet. Yeah, the water's off, isn't it? Isn't that impossible? My friend was right, even I, a fool, knew that there was no way there was running water in a building that had been abandoned for so long. However, from the faucet in front of me, the 3rd and 4th drops accumulated and landed on the tiles filled with sand and dust. The fact that there was dust and sand in the water must mean that this faucet had not been used before, but at this time, we thought that some vagrants or people who came here before must have played with water here, and we quickly walked away from the place. When I went out into the hallway, 2 guys were playing music from their phones and for a moment I wondered what was going on. When I questioned them, they sulked like children, saying, "Nothing's playing, it's boring." The 5 of us decided to go on our own this time, and we strolled around the ruins, chatting and laughing. We entered a few rooms, and found remnants of a hospital in various places, such as the skeleton of a pipe bed, which is often seen in hospital rooms. I thought to myself, if this is a hospital, there must be ghosts of dead patients. It's inappropriate. It's a little late for that now, isn't it? As we were having such a conversation and laughing through our noses, suddenly a rattling sound like a door being strongly locked sounded from somewhere in the building above our heads, and our shoulders shook with fear. What? One of the guys pointed to the ceiling and said, "That sound was coming from above, wasn't it?" One of the guys pointed to the ceiling. I remembered that this building had 3 floors before we broke into the ruins, and we wondered if there might be someone else here. We were more concerned about encountering another group of people than ghosts. We hoped it was a friendly group, but we didn't want to be surprised if it was a group of crazy people. The women, including me, were a little reluctant to go upstairs, but I agreed with the men's suggestion to just take a peek and see if we could find out what the noise was. As we were moving down the hallway to go upstairs, the sound echoed again with the same force and intensity. My male friend half laughed and made fun of us, saying, "They must be really crazy people." I'm in the back of the line and I'm confident in my ability to run away, so I don't mind. As I came to the upper floor with these thoughts in mind, I found a corridor of the same construction as the one on the lower floor, and a path that continued on and on, enveloped in darkness. The sound of the door slamming at a higher tempo than the first time seemed to be inviting us in. We proceeded down the hallway and found a sign for the restroom. The entrances to both the men's and women's restrooms have a wall built in front of them that blindfolds them, and the passageway is such that the men and women bypass each other back to back. Two men entered the entrance and listened carefully, but tilted their heads, not sure which restroom they were really hearing from. "Well, let's split up, men and women, and find out for sure." One of the male friends, smiling like a bad boy, suggested this idea. He was obviously trying to scare us women, who were obviously scared of ghosts, but I felt humiliated to be made fun of by this guy. The person in question didn't believe in ghosts, so he brushed it off with a smirk and a yes, which pissed me off a bit. Then we were separated into men and women again, and each of us went into the bathroom. Walking on the dirty tiled floor with a strange odor, even though I was wearing shoes, was not a pleasant experience. Inside the women's restroom, there was a wash basin with a full-length mirror in front of it, and 4 private rooms in the back. As we fearfully observed the inside of the restroom, we were caught off guard when we heard the sound again, which caused us to make a strange noise, "Oh." But none of us could figure out where the sound was coming from, and we were all saying things like, "Did that come from this bathroom?" We were hugging each other, saying things like, "I don't know." Then, we turned the light toward the private room to see where the sound was coming from, and waited for a while. Obviously, I had to come across the moment when the sound was coming from one of the private rooms in front of me. I was like, whoa, I can't. I could definitely hear it coming from there, couldn't I? 2 of my girlfriends hugged me from both sides and were scared. I was also scared because, as they said, I clearly felt that the sound was coming from the private room in front of me. Are you seriously hearing it from in there? Is someone in there? I was in a petty panic. Of course, I didn't show such a weak-kneed part of my mind, but the next moment I said, "Do you want to open it?" I said something I didn't expect myself to say. What was even stranger was that they, who are usually so fearful, weakly continued, "Yes," as if in sync with them. While they held me close, I put my fingertips on the door of the private room in front of me. Then, I'll open it? I took a deep breath and pushed the door away at once, and it opened vigorously. The next moment, our eyes met those of an old woman who was bending over a Japanese-style toilet seat with her buttocks fully exposed, and we both stiffened with our eyes rolled back in our sockets. "Our thought processes are short-circuiting," he said. "Don't look at me." The old woman stood up with an ogre-like expression on her face. Thanks to the old woman's angry voice, we came to our senses and shouted, "Oh, my God! Kya!" The 3 women ran out of the women's restroom at once, screaming, and as soon as they ran out into the hallway, they fell to the floor. Right after, 2 guys come out of the men's room and say, What? Are you okay?" But we were too busy pointing toward the women's restroom, and the 2 guys were looking at us and the entrance to the women's restroom alternately. We were looking at the entrance of the women's restroom alternately. Then, one of my female friends said, "Hey, there's something bad inside." And the 2 guys said, "For real?" And the 2 guys said, "Really?" They rushed into the women's restroom at full speed, perhaps wanting to catch a glimpse of the ghost. Then, within 5 seconds of the 2 men entering the restroom, they heard a scream from inside, "Oh my God! And the two men ran back into the hallway with blood on their faces. Oh, shit. Hey, let's get out of here. The men, however, were very distraught and stood us up and pulled us by the arm to take us out of the ruins. We wondered if we were that scared of the old woman, and since we agreed to escape from the ruins for the first time, we ran silently through the corridor and escaped from the ruins. Once outside, I felt a pain in my side and shortness of breath, probably from the lack of exercise. Each of us looked down at the ground and moved our shoulders up and down until we could catch our breath. After a short rest, the two men opened their mouths. That was really bad. Did you guys see that? We looked at each other. Grandma. You saw my grandmother. She had her butt out. My female friend excitedly complained. But the two men were like, Grandma. But the two men tilted their heads. But the two men tilted their heads. I asked, wasn't there an old lady in the private room? When I asked, wasn't there an old lady in the private room? My male friend replied, no, we saw a woman's face. To summarize, we women saw an old woman bent over with her buttocks out, but the two men saw a woman's face peeking out of the drain of the Japanese-style toilet. When I heard about the sighting, I said, wow, that's scary, with an oddly calm tone. The women and I laughed, feeling sorry for the men but glad that they did not have to see such a frightening sight. However, the sight of the old woman we saw was also quite a shocking sight, and the men said with a straight face, that's scary, too. After that, one of our male friends muttered, I wonder if ghosts rub themselves in it, too. This concludes this story. Thank you for listening to the end.